Hey guys, so welcome. Again, as usual, we're going to wait a couple minutes to let people sign on and sign in, and I'll be inviting some people. So you're going to hear me clicking around a little bit as I invite some people to join. And we'll get started in just a minute. Hi Melissa, hi Petra, welcome Dad. Marissa, good to see you. John, welcome. Hi Nancy. Awesome, good. Yeah, you can do the other class another time. So while we're waiting for people to log in or get on board, if you have any questions for me, you can put them in the comment box there. I may or may not get to them. And that goes for while we're doing the talk as well. So if I say something, you have a question about it, you can leave it in the comments there. I may or may not get to it. Let me see, I've got somebody commenting here on my text. Welcome, Mimi. Hey, Mimi, welcome. All right, so we're going to wait just another minute. Just answering questions about how to log in. There's Maggie. Hi, Barb. Yeah, Dharma Sunday. That's right. Have a little chat going. All right, so we're going to get started in just a moment. I want to see if I can get Catherine signed in. Welcome, Nancy. Again, I'm just trying to help some people out who are trying to sign on, who want to see the talk. All right, so again, if any questions come up or you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. I may or may not be able to get to them. But if I don't answer them this time, then maybe they can help inspire my next talk. Welcome, Craig. All right, so I want to get started here. And the first thing I want to start with is gratitude. I really feel that this is a very important thing, that if we're you see, my experience with practice, spiritual practice, is that when it is going well, when it is working, things like joy, gratitude, and peace arise naturally as part of our experience. They aren't things that we have to chase after. They aren't things that we need to try and remind ourselves to feel. We don't need someone to send us a meme on Facebook to remind us to feel gratitude. We just naturally feel it. So I think we're in a time where it's easy for us to feel like we're victims and that we've had something taken from us. Even we might even go so far as to feel like like we've had our freedom taken from us, right? That normally we are free to go to the bar, we're free to go to yoga class, we're free to socialize, and now we can't. And so it's very easy for us to go into a sort of a victim mentality where we feel like something has been taken from us. But we can always go there. That isn't unique to the situation we find ourselves in. So I suspect most people before the pandemic had a list of complaints, and they had things that they felt, again, that they were victims of, or they were not free, or they didn't feel grateful because there were these problems. So ideally, again, if our practices are working, we don't need something taken from us to then feel grateful for it. So right now in your life, there is likely so much going on that you could feel immense gratitude for. Okay, so now this is something that we can practice. Now, gratitude journaling is a great way to begin to cultivate an overall sense of gratitude. But again, in my experience, when our practices are working, when we're doing the right practices, and very often this comes in collaboration with a teacher that we trust. I know in America and in the New Age, there's this really strong sense that we just go it alone. We just do it ourselves. We don't need anyone to tell us what to do. And there's some truth to that. But in my experience, it also is extremely helpful to work with a teacher that you trust. And it can be difficult to find a teacher that you trust. So I'm not saying that's me, it may not be. But finding someone who you can really trust, who you can rely on, and then working with them to give you the right combination of practices that works with your lifestyle, things that you can actually achieve and do so that you have this sense of increasing peace, joy, and gratitude in your life that just is sort of day by day. It's just naturally growing bit by bit. So again, I feel very grateful to have the health, to have the breath, to have the resources to be able to share with you this evening. So it really, there's nothing about this that we should be taking for granted. And some of you who are regular students of mine know that I would occasionally in yoga class, I would say, wow, it's so special to be here with you. And now with the pandemic, we realize how special that was, right? How easily it can be taken from us. And so let's not wait until this interaction is taken from us to feel grateful for the days when we could get online and have a Dharma talk. Because this could be taken tomorrow. It could be taken later this evening. It's raining right now, so my lights could go out. Who knows, So again, gratitude. I really, really feel grateful for being able to share with you this evening, and I hope that you feel the same. All right, so I have a few things written. We'll see how much I get to and whether I stay on track or not. It's not that important either way. So the first thing I wanted to speak about was the right relationship with thought. Very common misunderstanding with meditation is that meditation is about not having thoughts. And there may be teachers who teach that. That's not what I teach, and that's not what I call meditation. Because in the meditation tradition that I came up in, Zen, they say that eventually everything is done in meditation. Everything becomes a meditation. Everything is a meditation. So obviously you can't do math and be thoughtless. You can't maybe even drive a car and be thoughtless. Okay, so thoughts are necessary for human life. And while we may have some pretty amazing experiences when we're free of thought, we definitely need thought as human beings in order to survive. So the question isn't, am I having thoughts or not? The real question is, do I have the right relationship with my thoughts? And that's what the meditation that I teach tries to cultivate with you. So if you want the meditation instruction, they're up on the Patreon page. There's a video. It's free. Check it out. Okay? It's both simpler than you probably think it is, and it's also much harder than maybe you think it is, actual meditation. Okay? So the right relationship, what we practice when we do formal meditation is being able to let go of our thoughts. Doesn't mean they're going to go anywhere, but we just get used to being able to release our thoughts. Normally the mind is sort of like that. We have a thought and we cling on to it, and we won't let it go. And that's not the right relationship that we want with thought. Okay? So what is the right relationship with thought? Well, there's a few points I wanted to point out here. And one is life can be thought of a little bit like a game. Okay? So you have the game of life. And if you'll notice in your life, if you're really honest and you're aware, you notice that you have some control, but you don't have complete control over anything, right? You seem to have some control, some influence over things. Like maybe your thoughts, maybe you're thinking and you could be like, well, I'm not going to think, or something like that. But you don't have complete control, right? Thoughts will come back eventually. Even like your health, like your body, you control your body to some degree. But you'll find that if you really had complete control of your body, you would never get sick, would you? You'd never get sick. You'd never have any problems with your body. Your body would just always be perfect, but it's not, right? As much as we might try and eat healthy and do the right things, occasionally we'll find that, that's not the case with our body. And I'll argue that this is what makes life interesting. So this is why I said the game of life. If you think of spirit, and if you think of spirit as something that is perfect and whole always, at all times, it's like God. It's all-knowing. It's perfect. It's all-powerful. Another word for all of that is boring. There's no adventure in it, is there? You know everything. You are everything. You're completely whole and perfect. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do, is there? Right? You're everything. You are complete and perfect and whole. So it's only by having imperfection, it's only by not being complete, by having that tension of yin and yang, that then life begins to become fun and interesting again. Okay? So this is just sort of the dynamic of life. Now, thought, the way that I would encourage you to think about your thoughts is as tools. This is a great way to think of your thoughts. So your thoughts are like tools, and you have maybe in a given moment different thoughts. Now, the average person who isn't a meditator and hasn't done much spiritual practice, their relationship with thought is that the first thought that pops in their head, they latch onto it, they identify with it, which means that they think because that thought popped up in their head, that means it's their thought, and it may not be, but they take possession of it. Oh, it's my thought. And then because they think it's their thought, they begin trying to defend it and to prove that it's true. And they begin to reject any thoughts or ideas that are in opposition to that thought that they've clung on to. Now again, through meditation, what we'd like to learn to do is to release or to let go of our thoughts. So we begin to develop a different relationship. So this is again like, let's say we're walking along and we have a certain job we want to do. And the first tool we find is a hammer. And we pick up that hammer, right? Now let's say we actually want to drive screws and not nails. Well, the hammer maybe can do that job, but maybe it's not the best tool for that job. Well, if we're holding the hammer, we can't pick up a screwdriver. Let's just say we have one hand, right? Because we have kind of one mind. So we have this one hand, and we're holding the hammer, and we're like, oh, I love this hammer. I don't want to let it go. But it's actually a screwdriver that we need. But we're holding onto this tight. No, this is my hammer. I'm not going to let go of this hammer. It's mine. And that's how we are often with thoughts. It's often the case that our thoughts actually do not serve us. They don't make us happy. They also maybe not making those around us very unhappy. We're maybe causing a lot of suffering because of our beliefs, because of things that should be a tool that we can use. Instead, we just picked up something. Maybe we picked it up when we were really young. Our parents gave it to us, right? A certain thought or idea. They maybe said, honey, you got to work hard if you want to get anything done in this life. And maybe we heard that and we never questioned, is that actually true? And we've gone through life from that moment on, working hard so that we can achieve what we want to achieve in life. And maybe we even look down on other people who we think aren't working hard. And we think, well, they're not going to achieve anything. Well, we may have never looked. Is that actually true? Okay, so it's much better for us to be able to pick up a thought and also put it down. To pick up a thought if it's useful, if it seems to be helpful in a situation, and then to put it down. And generally, people walk around and they have an opinion about everything. I would encourage you to maybe start having less of an opinion about everything. Maybe just start being like, you know what, I don't know about stuff, and really try and cultivate this awareness. And this goes very deep. This can go to things like finding out that we're sick, or we have cancer, or that we're going bankrupt. And really the mind will immediately say, that's horrible, that's awful, it's the worst thing that can ever happen to you. And this teaching and this habit can go so deep that we just begin to question even those thoughts. You know, what? I don't actually know that that's true. I don't know that this isn't the best thing that ever happened to me. It certainly maybe doesn't look like it. I know other people maybe aren't seeing it that way, but it doesn't mean that's not the case. Okay? So this is a certain kind of doubt around thinking that we want to start to cultivate. And then that allows us, again, this sort of mental flexibility where we can pick up thoughts when they're useful and we can put them down when they're not useful. We have a lot of facility with our thoughts that way. So this is what I'll call skillful use of thinking and thoughts. Again, as far as I'm concerned, it is not our goal to eliminate thoughts. That's not that useful for a human being. Okay, if you look at animals, we could say that animals don't have thoughts. Are you going to be able to live in Atlanta and work and survive being like a squirrel or a dog? Not that there's anything wrong with them, but look at how they live. Have you met a squirrel or a dog that holds down a job, that has a bank account, that pays taxes? Because those are all things that you need to do. So again, we don't want to kid ourselves about thinking. Thinking is not our enemy. Our enemy is the improper use of thought, improper relationship with thought. Okay? So how do I know if I'm using thought skillfully? How do I know if I'm in the right relationship with my thoughts? How do I feel? How do I feel? How does my body feel? Am I at peace? Again, do I feel a sense of joy and gratitude? If not, then there's a good chance that I have the wrong relationship with my thoughts. Now here's the thing. There's a certain momentum to thought and to habits. So if you have been living in wrong relationship with your thought for a long time, and you hear this and you're like, okay, I'm going to start changing my ways, you may not find that immediately there's a sense of peace or a sense of gratitude or a sense of joy there. It might take you quite some time to unwind that habit energy, that conditioning, before you can experience those things. But over the long term, this is what we want to look at. Am I overall living in a sense of peace and joy and gratitude in my life? Or am I constantly running after things, feeling like something is lacking, feeling like I need to somehow prove myself? These are signs that I'm not in the right relationship with thought. Okay? So we can know our relationship with thought, both conscious and unconscious, by how the body feels. And the body is such a blessing, and it really helps to show us, because our mind can be full of it. It really can. We can have all kinds of, we can totally delude ourselves with thought. But the question is, how do I feel? Because that's not going to lie. How do I actually feel? Okay, do I actually feel a sense of openness and peace in my body? So I like to say, and many of you have heard me say this in the past, don't wait for joy, peace, bliss, or love. You want to experience them right here and right now. These things are eternal. These aren't like happiness or winning the lottery or a great meal or something like that. These aren't things that are going to come and go. These are things that basically are the underpinnings of our whole experience. And when we are in right relationship with thought, these are things that allow us to, again, to play the game of life and to really enjoy it. Okay, the other week I gave the analogy of a movie, and I think that's a great analogy, and so is this game. We play a game because we want to have fun, because we want to enjoy ourselves. So that's a question we can ask ourselves: are we having fun yet? Now, I don't want you to misinterpret that, because some people will then think I'm talking about a hedonistic lifestyle or a hedonistic approach where you're just trying to get as much pleasure out of life as you can. I'm not talking about pleasure. Pleasure generally is derived from satisfying the body's urges. You might say biological urges. So again, what do we like to eat? We like to have sex. We like these kinds of things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just basically satisfying biological urges, right? We like fatty and salty foods for various, again, biological reasons. There are reasons that we can find for why do we like what we like, why do we crave what we crave, in large part. So this isn't about pleasure. It's not about deriving pleasure. Again, I'm going to use that word joy to really point to something other than happiness. So I'll use the word happiness as something that comes and goes. Comes and goes. But joy is something that is underneath the surface, that's always there, that we can always be in contact with, even when we're sad. And this is something you have to experience to understand, because a lot of people think that you can't be joyful and sad at the same time, and yet I've experienced it, and so have some of my students as well. So those are not mutually exclusive things, okay? So again, don't wait for joy, peace, bliss, and love. You want to experience them in every moment. So if you were to sit comfortably and close your eyes and really let go in this moment and notice how you feel, what do you find? Do you find that peace? Do you find a sense of joy? Is there a completeness there? I want you to try this right now. Is there a sense of wholeness, of completion, that you're not needing to change anything or to go or to be something else in order to be really full and complete? There's no right answer, so it might be yes, it might be no. Well, what many people experience when they get still and they get quiet and they go inside is some sense of dissatisfaction, some sense of tension somewhere. And they assume that that means that something is missing, or that they need to be different in some way, or that something needs to change. So I'm going to invite you to explore the idea that maybe this feeling of discontent, whatever it is just supposed to be there. That it doesn't really mean that anything is missing. It doesn't mean what you think it means. I'll put it to you that way. That maybe that tension, that sense of discontentment, again, maybe that's really pointing to the fact that we have the wrong relationship with our thoughts. It doesn't actually mean we need a triple macchiato latte. It doesn't actually mean that we need to smoke some dope or we need a glass of wine. It doesn't actually mean that we need to become a millionaire to feel a sense of peace or joy. Maybe that sense of tension that's there, sense of dissatisfaction, is actually pointing us to the fact that we have the wrong relationship with thought. So it's supposed to be there, but we're just misinterpreting what that tension actually means. Now again, how do we know that we are dissatisfied? Again, I mentioned it earlier, it's in the body. The body will not lie to you. Okay, so when I go inside and I go into my body and I feel into my heart and the gut and the throat, and there is tension there and tightness there, this is communicating something to me very valuable. Even if consciously I tell myself, I'm great, I have $1 million in the bank, I'm the happiest person in the world, if there is that tension there, then that means that on an unconscious level, something is not right. Okay? On the other hand, if I can go into my body and I feel that sense of openness, that sense of peace, there isn't contraction, but I have no money, then I'm great. Right? Have you ever considered that? What if you had no money in the bank? You had no money in your wallet, but you felt an intense sense of joy and peace. Would it matter? See, we grow up thinking that you can't feel peace or joy without having $1 million in the bank. But there are people who have experienced the opposite. There are yogis, Gandhi, people like that. They didn't possess or own anything, and yet they had a lot of power. And I would say they probably experienced more joy than many people who have much more money than they have. So is it true that I need X number of dollars in order to feel a sense of peace or joy? I don't think so. Okay? So feeling into the body, somewhere in the body, our emotions are always experienced there. So instead of doing what we normally do when we feel this sense of dissatisfaction, which is, okay, I need to go out and make more money, or I need to go get a cup of coffee, or I need a glass of wine, or I need to have sex, whatever it might be, what if we just were present with that tension? And again, assuming we don't actually really know its source, and we don't really know what would make it go away long term. Yes, going and scratching whatever itch it is, going to the fridge and having a Ben & Jerry's might temporarily satisfy that, but you'll notice it comes back again, right? And this is how those things are. It will come back again, and then you'll need to do it again. So again, this addiction really is the right word for our relationship with these things. And some of my teachers have said everything is an addiction, and I pretty much agree with that. Like we're on a treadmill where we're just constantly one meal after the next, and having sex and doing all these different things. We're just constantly trying to satisfy these urges, and we never do. Temporarily we can, and again, that's pleasure, what we call pleasure. So I can pleasure myself for a few moments. There isn't a lasting sense of peace or joy there. And spirituality is about what lasts. It's about what's eternal. And eternity has nothing to do with, it's not a long time. It's outside of time. So this is why I say don't wait to be happy. Don't wait to find peace. Don't wait to feel joy, because you don't have to. It's not like you're going to come on a retreat with me in the future and then you can feel these things because I'm going to reveal some deep truth to you. They're always accessible to you, even though it may not feel that way. The truth of the teaching is that these things are always present, okay? So, what I recommend is beginning to develop a relationship of curiosity. So again, when I begin to feel something, I feel that tension, I feel that dissatisfaction, instead of, I want that to go away, why do I feel that way? I need to call my friend and start gossiping, and maybe that will make me feel better, right? Maybe something happened. Maybe your boss treated you poorly, or what you feel treated you poorly. What do we want to do? We want to pick up the phone and call a friend and say, hey, can you believe it? My boss said this and did that, and da-da-da. And then we want our friend to say, oh my God, I can't believe that. What a jerk. You're a great person, right? Well, what if we don't do that? What if we just let it sit there and we're, again, present? We begin to get curious about, why am I letting this person throw me off balance? What assumption am I making on a deeper level, or might I be making on a deeper level, that would lead me to, question whether or not I'm a good person or a hard worker, or whatever it is we've been accused of, right? Because people can accuse us of all kinds of things. So instead of doing that normal thing of running away from it or trying to fix it, let's just be with it. And this is a way of breaking our addiction. And again, there are many ways that we can do this. So now, this relates to what I was just saying. We often want to blame others for how we feel. So again, if I feel like my boss treated me poorly, or my mate treated me poorly, or someone accused me of something unfairly, we want to say it's their fault. But here's a really big piece of advice that I have for you, and I encourage you to really adopt as best as you can. It's not easy. I'm not saying I can do this perfectly all the time, but it's in general what I practice. So, okay, practice isn't about being perfect. It's about trying to move in a certain direction. So the practice is take 100% responsibility in every situation for how you feel. And again, you are the only one that is powerful enough to make yourself feel happy and joyful and peaceful. And you're also the only one who ultimately can take that away from you. Now, I get it. Probably most of you don't understand that statement, and I don't expect you to. And that's not what this is about. You don't need a spiritual teacher to tell you what you already think or believe. Okay, that's not what this is about. This is really about challenging our assumptions and beliefs, because if what we're already thinking is going to lead us to enlightenment and to eternal peace and joy, then we don't need to change what we think, do we? We have no need for spiritual teaching. If I already have it all figured out, then what need do I have for spiritual teaching? So spiritual teaching has to challenge our status quo. Okay, it has to go against what we already are thinking we already believe. So this isn't about you agreeing with everything that I'm saying here. I want you to take these ideas and play around with them and explore them and try them out. Okay? So again, what happens if you take 100% responsibility for your happiness, or I'm going to say joy, peace in every situation? So you're not, someone can look at you sideways, someone can yell at you, someone can accuse you of right or wrong, and you are just like, I know it's up to me, okay, to find the happiness and the peace. And again, it has nothing to do with later or another time or different situation, because again, now we're back in time, and spirituality is about what is outside of time, the eternal. It's always the case. Okay? So taking 100% responsibility, that gives you power. It gives you strength. That is hard to imagine how powerful it is. Okay? You really start to feel almost invincible. Doesn't mean people can't come along and throw you. I mean, like I said, this is a practice that I practice. Doesn't mean I'm perfect at it. Doesn't mean someone can't throw me for a loop or say something. But again, as my mind starts up, oh my God, this and that, am I a horrible person? What have I been doing wrong? All this kind of stuff. Maybe they're right. All this kind of stuff. I again go back to my body. What am I feeling and experiencing in my body? What sorts of assumptions or fears are there? Fear is a huge one. We're not going to get into that today, but that's a huge one that we probably can spend a whole talk looking at fear. Okay? So take responsibility. And again, you're not letting anyone off the hook. It might feel that way. You're like, oh, this person was so mean to me, and I'm letting them off the hook by taking responsibility myself. Trust me, you're doing it for your own good, not for their good. And you become so much more powerful. And people's relationship with you changes when you start doing that. They find that they can't manipulate you in the same way that they can manipulate other people. Things like emotional blackmail become difficult or impossible because, again, you're taking responsibility for how you feel. They can't just say, oh, you're a jerk, you shouldn't do that, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden you're jumping through hoops to get them to take that back. Right? You're just kind of like, oh, I'm sorry that you feel that way. And it doesn't mean you don't self-reflect. It doesn't mean you don't say, well, maybe there's some truth in what they said. But again, that's different from guilt and self-loathing and all this stuff that the ego has us do. So please keep that in mind. So it's really only by taking 100% responsibility for how we feel that we can then stand in our own power. And that also frees us from things like guilt, where other people are trying to tell us that we're responsible for how they feel. Okay? And I have members of my own family who try and get me to believe this all the time, that they're miserable because of the way I'm living my life. Even though it's my life, it's my choices, somehow, I'm so powerful and I'm such an amazing being that I'm able to just make them miserable, even though the things I'm doing has nothing to do with them. But this is what people do all the time to one another, especially people often who say that they love one another. This is a very often, very, very common thing that we do to one another. You are making me feel XYZ, so you need to stop it. Okay? So again, we free others and we free ourselves when we begin practicing that. Highly, highly recommend that that's a practice that you start to take up. And again, these are yoga practices. These are jnana yoga. These are mental practices that we do. All right, so let's look at maybe going a little deeper in our meditation here. So again, I'll invite you to get still, close your eyes, make sure you're relatively comfortable. And I'm going to invite you to explore what would happen if, at least for a few moments, you were not for or against anything. You're not for or against anything. Your eyes are closed and just whatever is happening is happening. You're not, oh, it should be quieter right now. My kids are making a noise and I'm trying to meditate. No, that's part of it. You're not for or against anything. Just for a moment. You're just being. You're allowing everything to be just as it is. Just giving it permission. Now I'm going to invite you to not try to make that happen, but to notice that everything already is exactly like it is. Is that not true? Everything already is exactly as it is. Notice it doesn't need our permission, right? Reality doesn't care. We can internally resist. Oh, I wish the dog would stop barking outside. But it doesn't really matter, does it? The dog keeps barking, or our kids keep making noise, or we keep feeling a contraction somewhere in our body, or we keep having a certain thought. Maybe we had a conversation with a family member earlier today and it keeps coming up in our mind and we don't like the way we feel when it comes up. We're like, I wish that thought would just go away. Notice that it is just how it is. It doesn't need our permission. We can internally resist, but it doesn't mean it's going to stop. Can you see that? Can you feel that? Now, I want you to notice if there is a change internally on how you feel when you are resisting that aspect of reality that you don't approve of versus just letting it be. Is there a difference? Is there maybe a subtle shift? Now, there's no right or wrong answer. Again, your experience is your experience. But reality is just reality. It doesn't need our permission, right? The pandemic doesn't need us to say, okay, pandemic, you know what? I've been meditating, so I'm just going to let you be. I'm going to give you permission to be. Does that have any effect at all? Versus, you know what, pandemic, I'm over it. I'm done with social distancing. Does that mean the pandemic's going to stop? So, giving reality permission to be doesn't change reality, but does it change how you feel inside? Reality is just reality. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't care. But can we shift how we feel inside by saying yes? In my experience, and I can only share my experience, not giving permission just does not feel good. It doesn't. It feels like emotional poison. I don't benefit by fighting with reality. Ever. It doesn't mean I can't see a situation as not ideal or that I might not want to change it. But I'm talking about a psychological resistance, an emotional resistance that's experienced, again, in the body. We can feel it in the body, and very often it's associated with certain kinds of thoughts. Like, they really shouldn't be doing that. Or again, I wish my kids would be quiet when I'm trying to listen to the Dharma Talk. And again, it doesn't mean we can't say, hey kids, can you please be quiet while I'm listening to the Dharma Talk? And they may or may not listen, right? Reality is just reality. They may or may not listen. Okay, and then the question is, are we in opposition to that or not? All right, so let's go a little deeper. Okay, you're sitting comfortably, maybe your eyes are closed. Now, as you give permission, do you find that there is a kind of stillness or silence or a peace that is there? Again, in a moment, you're just not being for or against anything. You recognize that everything just is the way that it is, doesn't need your permission, and that when you give permission, you feel a sense of expansion and relaxation. And then within that, you begin to find that there is a kind of stillness or peace or silence that is there in the background. So what I call meditation is really a noticing or becoming aware of what is already there in the background. It's always there. If we put our attention on what's in the foreground, tension, thoughts, beliefs, then we can lose sight of what's in the background, which is this peace, silence, joy. Okay, so again, it's like a movie screen. If we are totally immersed in the movie, then we don't see the screen, which makes the projection of the movie possible. But if we were to get rid of the screen, the movie wouldn't be possible. It would be ruined, wouldn't it? And so the drama, the game, the movie of life is unfolding on this background of peace, of joy, of bliss, of stillness. We can't have drama, trauma. We can't have experience without this ground of being that is behind it. You don't create it. You can't create it. You can't make more of it or less of it. It's already there. The only thing you can do is choose to notice it versus not notice it. When you let go of being for or against, when you let go resisting what is, my experience is it becomes easier to notice this background that is always present. The presence of emotions or thoughts does not mean that peace is absent. In the Bible, they talk about the peace that passeth all understanding. This is a peace that is beyond the coming and the going in our mind. Thoughts, they come and they go. Emotions, they come and they go. Experiences come and go, even an experience of God, even an experience of nirvana. If it is an experience, it comes and it goes. There's only one thing that is not coming and going. And this is this background on which all experience is arising and falling away again. So the very idea that I need something more, I need time, I need a teacher, I need a technique, I need a retreat, I need to meditate, I need to be able to do Ashtanga third level series in order to experience peace. This is a barrier to actually experiencing the peace that passeth all understanding, the peace that is always and forever with us. Now, again, upon first hearing this and trying these techniques, they may be completely over our head. What is he talking about? I don't feel peace. I don't experience anything. And again, this is where meditation comes in. If things are so incredibly busy inside of us, then we get the sense that there is no peace. And the analogy that I will give for this is, imagine a sky that is full of clouds. Has the sky gone anywhere? Has the sun disappeared? We know it hasn't. The sun is still there. The sky is still there. But there's so many clouds that maybe we can no longer see the sky. We can no longer see the sun. Doesn't mean the sun isn't still warming us, but we can't see it anymore. So this is what this peace is like. It's always there, and it's always feeding us. It's always sustaining us. And yet, if we have allowed our mind and our heart to get so cluttered with ideas and beliefs, again, we're picking up all these tools. We don't know what to do with them. We're not using them in the right way. Then it can be very hard to experience the reality of what I'm saying. So don't be discouraged if that's the case. This is where this idea of calming the mind and the heart comes from. Not stopping. Not stopping. Okay? And maybe there is a benefit to stopping thoughts. Sure. But that's not what I'm talking about. Okay? Calming the heart and the mind. And there are many, many, many yoga practices that help us to do this. To calm them down, to make them tranquil, so that then we can begin to see. So there's less clouds going through the sky, right? Clouds aren't bad. Sometimes we need some rain. We need the clouds. They're not evil, they're not bad. If there are only clouds all the time, then that's perhaps a problem. And then if there are no clouds, this is also can be a problem, right? So we want some clouds. We want some thoughts. We can use them. But most of us have what one Zen teacher called mental diarrhea. And this is a great analogy. So elimination, if we're talking about our physiological functions, absolutely vital for health. Okay, if you stop being able to go to the bathroom, that's called constipation. That is a huge problem. Okay, but diarrhea, this is also a problem. So again, what is the right relationship? If we're going to the bathroom, we want a healthy relationship with elimination. And with our thoughts, we want a certain relationship. A certain amount of thought is useful and helpful. But most people, okay, and I'm probably talking about you, most people suffer from too much thought. A lot of it is completely useless as well. Thinking takes up a lot of energy. Okay? So peace is, you might think of as an absence. It really comes from, you might say, allowing things, letting go of things. It's not something that we gain. We don't have to gain anything to have it. It really is noticing what we're holding on to. And again, I'm talking about this moment, not talking about 6 months from now, right? Because some of you are going to hear this and be like, okay, well, what am I hanging on to? What do I need to let go? Maybe I need to get divorced because I think I've been hanging on to my marriage. That's not how I'm talking. I'm not talking in that time frame. Maybe you do need to get a divorce. I have no idea. I'm talking about this moment. What are you hanging on to? Where is that contraction in your body? And what thoughts are helping you to hold that contraction? Can you let those go in real time, right now? Because there's no other time that you can do it. If you'll notice, whenever the future arrives, it's always the present moment. Okay, so we don't have to wait for retreat to do that. We can do it right now. So peace cannot be added to you. It's already there. How can you add something you already have? You can't have more of it. Okay, you have as much as you could ever want. The key, again, is noticing what's already there. If there's too much noise, then I might not be able to notice it. So I may need to calm the heart and the mind down, what in yoga is called the chitta. I might need to use yoga techniques to calm these down. So you cannot get peace, you can't buy it, and you can't hold it. The very act of trying to hold or grasp peace will cause you to lose it every time, guaranteed. Okay? All right, everyone. Thank you for joining this evening. I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to help support me as a teacher, there's some links there, Venmo, PayPal, or you can become a patron on my Patreon page. I've posted a lot of videos like this one, yoga classes, Dharma talks, breathing techniques, guided meditation instructions, yoga nidras, and they're all free. At this period, I think we just have to support one another. And so this is what I do. I teach yoga, so I'm trying to support anyone who's interested in having me help support them. So you don't have to be a prior student of mine to take advantage of these things. But I am, like many of you, essentially out of work at the moment, so I could use the help or support. And by making everything free, it allows those who really can't afford, they're out of work, they can't afford to pay for yoga right now, it allows them to still take advantage of the classes. And maybe those who are still working and are maybe doing more than they can maybe contribute. And I think it all evens out in the end. But I'd much rather you take advantage of these offerings and not worry about the money if that's going to be an issue. So please let me know in what ways I can help support you as a teacher. Again, that's what I do. And we can meet one-on-one virtually, obviously not in person, but virtually. Again, there are a lot of recordings. I've got live classes every week that I do. I'm trying to think of ways that I can offer even more to help support the community. So let me know if you have any ideas for me. I'm open to them. Otherwise, I think we'll do this again in about a week. We'll see. Some weeks I'm not as inspired. I don't have as many points to talk about. Another thing I'd like to do at some point again is have a discussion group. So maybe on Zoom or something like that, where we get together as a group and we just, talk as a group a little more rather than me doing all the talking. All right. Thank you, everyone. Namaste. Again, reach out to me if you have any questions. Facebook, Patreon, my website. I'd love to hear from you. And again, let me know how I can help support you at this time. Jai Bhagwan, Namaste. Thank you.